In 2022, this Silent Hill 2 Iceberg graphic was made and posted to the r/Silent Hill subreddit by user FlyMeToSaturn. Many comments have been made asking for clarification on some of the subjects and information included in the graphic, and if you take a look at FlyMeToSaturn's responses, it looks like they did their best to answer as a knowledgeable fan, but was also learning while they made the chart, and FlyMeToSaturn cites a specific streamer, NubZombie. Well, that's convenient. And all of the topics in this iceberg are things that I have regularly covered during my in-depth story playthroughs over the years, and even one or two of my own personal crazy theories I've discussed in the past as well. So who better to break this berg down than yours truly? This is the Silent Hill 2 Iceberg. Level 1. James killed Mary. James and Mary were a happy couple enjoying their vacation in the tourist town of Silent Hill, until Mary fell terminally ill. James, unable to shoulder the burden of her illness after years of her condition worsening, chooses to end her suffering himself by smothering her with a pillow. This is the crux of the story of Silent Hill 2, which explores James as a false narrator, initially giving a false timeline and reason for Mary's death, and his journey towards understanding the truth and acceptance of what he has done. Dead-end roads. Many of the roads around town are blocked or otherwise dead ends. This is a recurring theme throughout the series meant to emphasize the feeling of being trapped in the town, only able to enter or leave on terms other than one's own. Maria is idealized Mary. Maria is a manifestation created by the town from James's own thoughts of Mary, combined with his desires for her to be healthier and sexier. The sub-scenario, born from a wish, indicates Maria's origins. She is quite literally born from James's wishes. Her outfits are brighter and more revealing than Mary's more typical dress. Her personality is more sensual and suggestive, and she serves to add another layer to James's own confusion once she begins displaying traits and memories that belong to Mary. Angela was raped. There is significant evidence through the newspaper and notes, abstract daddy boss and room design, and Angela's own dialogue to infer that she was sexually abused by her father, Thomas Orozco. Creator Takayoshi Sato originally created Angela with this abuse in mind, intending for her to be a girl in her late teens, but looking older than normal, having awkward and uncomfortable social interactions, especially around men, and reverting to childlike ways of speaking in heightened moments of stress, implying a trauma dating back to her earlier childhood. The creature made to represent Angela's father Thomas, known as the Abstract Daddy, is depicted as a larger human form pinning down a smaller human form covered in what looks like bloody human skin bed sheets stretched over the frame of a bed. The room where this creature is encountered is itself made to reflect scarred and bruised flesh. Along the walls are metallic pistons continuously probing in and out of the fleshy holes. The pistons made metallic to give the impression of being a foreign or unnatural object amidst all the otherwise organic, skin-like environment. Eddie and Angela are murderers. All of the main characters of Silent Hill 2, James, Eddie, and Angela, are guilty of murder, although the circumstances surrounding each of their acts are very different. James murders Mary, but it could be viewed as an act of mercy, releasing her from her suffering, or a selfish relinquishing of her as a burden. Angela murders her father, Thomas Orozco. As previously discussed, he was known to have physically abused Angela throughout her life, and after Angela attempted to run away and was stopped by her father, an altercation occurred where she stabbed him several times in self-defense, resulting in his death. Eddie is a bit different because he has a tendency to deny what he has done, or justify it through drastic means, so his word can't be taken at face value. He admits to shooting and killing a dog, and shooting but only injuring an unknown football player.
Yeah, I killed that dog. It was fun. Then he came after me. I shot him too, right in the leg. He cried more than the dog.
Strange sounds in fog. While walking from the observation deck at the start of the game down to the town streets, there are unique sounds playing, hinting that there are unknown creatures or some type of movement like footsteps just behind James, although nothing is actually rendered visually. Eddie was bullied.
Do you know what it does to you, James? When you're hated, picked on, spit on, just because of the way you look, after you've been laughed at your whole friggin' life.
It can be inferred from Eddie's dialogue and general demeanor towards anything he perceives as an insult that Eddie was a victim of severe bullying and has developed a violent victim complex as a result.
You're just like him, James.
Hey, I didn't mean anything.
Don't bother. I understand. You've been laughing at me all along, haven't you? Ever since we first met. I'll kill you, James!
James planned to kill himself. Based on information from developers like Masahiro Ito, actor Guy CIHI, and the context of the game, it is generally understood that James killed Mary, then drove to Silent Hill with the intention of taking his own life. However, once he arrives in town, he suffers a severe delusion and for the moment blocks out what he's done and forgets the real reason he came to the town. If the player gets the in-water ending, which according to developers and cast was the original ending planned for the story, James remembers his reason for returning to Silent Hill was to drive into Toluca Lake, taking his own life, with Mary's body in the backseat behind him, to be together in the afterlife.
Now I understand the real reason I came to this town. I wonder, what was I afraid of? Without you, Mary, I've got nothing. Now we can be together.
I'll go into this in a bit more detail on some of the deeper levels of this iceberg later on. Level 2. Monsters are symbolic. Creature designer Masahiro Ito incorporated many aspects of James, his psyche, and his thoughts and memories of Mary into the monsters. When I was working on designing creatures in Silent Hill 2, I really made them have their each meaning of appearance on the true reason of James's journey, because they are something like illusions from his subconscious, not only creatures to take the score. Lying figure. A being that represents the image of a patient writhing in agony, a manifestation of James's suffering. Resembling a body bag thrashing around in pain, this creature is a parallel to James watching Mary suffering in her sickbed. Mannequin. A manifestation of James's natural urges and inclinations. Accordingly, it is abused by Pyramid Head. The pent-up sexual urges from James over the years of not being able to be intimate with Mary during her illness is reflected in the more sexualized human-like aspects of the creatures. Bubblehead Nurse. Its grotesquely swollen head faces the wrong way, a being that is suggestive of Mary's hospitalization. They twitch and shake their heads, a representation of James subconsciously recalling Mary's suffocation at his hands. Mandarin. symbolizes feelings of overwhelming, incomprehensible anguish. For this reason, it is not permitted to stand above ground. Mandarins notably have mouths on the ends of their swollen arm-like limbs. Ito has commented that his usage of strange mouths are meant to reference Mary's cruel words and spiteful way of speaking to James during her final worst days. Flesh lips. Lustful lips. The lattice, which signifies a bed, and the mouth, located on the abdomen, symbolize Mary. Another creature with a strange mouth, reflecting Mary's cruel words. Abstract daddy. Ideal father. On top of its bed-like form are two covered, reclining figures, a symbol of Angela's past. A grotesque representation of the sexual abuse and trauma suffered by Angela at the hands of her father, Thomas Orozco. Pyramid Head. Takes the appearance of an executioner of times past, but is actually incarnated from the part of James's consciousness that feels that he deserves punishment. One of the most iconic creatures of the franchise, his sharp, angled metal helmet is a representation of pain and carrying the weight of guilt. Mary. A being that embodies James's conflicted emotions towards Mary during her final days. Her face is like the Virgin Mary's, and her posture is reminiscent of a crucifixion. As a final boss, she represents the final step in James accepting the reality of having taken Mary's life, facing a nightmarish version resembling Mary in a cage-like bed frame. James is hallucinating. This is an old fan theory that James is simply hallucinating his experience. There are many variations on this theory, some suggesting that James is wandering around a functional town, killing innocent people that he perceives as monsters. Others suggest that James himself is a patient in a mental hospital imagining the entire ordeal. These theories have long since been put to rest by various members of Team Silent giving context and their intentions behind the characters and plot. It's understandable to come to these or similar conclusions, since the idea of individual perception is such a strong recurring theme throughout Silent Hill 2, with several instances of characters perceiving reality around them in different ways. One could describe these instances as hallucinations, but I feel that doesn't accurately convey the phenomenon. It's also easy to confuse the terminology of manifestation with hallucination. The key difference being that a hallucination would only be perceived in the mind of a person, whereas a manifestation is a physical creation caused by the spiritual power that stems from a person's thoughts. While there are things that James is not perceiving normally, it's more akin to reality around him transforming and changing to fit his delusion, rather than just his own personal hallucinations. Sexual connotations.
So the hotel was your special place, huh? I'll bet it was.
James being unable to have sexual relations with his wife Mary after her illness developed gave way to James's pent-up sexual frustration and guilt over selfish sexual urges. This aspect of his subconscious manifests itself through many different ways, including Maria's overt sexuality and the sexualized appearance of creatures like mannequins and nurses.
Everybody is thinking and concerning about, sex and death every day. And if we want to scare or shake or touch the users or spectators, then we have to think about, sex and death deeply.
Misty Day. This is the title of a painting depicting Pyramid Head that is on display at the Silent Hill Historical Society. Originally, the design was meant to invoke the image of the town's old hooded executioners. According to Masahiro Ito, this painting was viewed by James and Mary while they visited the Historical Society during their trip, and is the entire reason for Pyramid Head taking on his form, resembling the old executioners, as the image was already planted in James's mind. Chainsaw. Unlockable as a New Game Plus weapon on console releases, the chainsaw can be found on a log pile across from Silent Hill Ranch during the beginning walk into town. In the PC port of Silent Hill 2, the chainsaw is unlocked automatically, even for New Game playthroughs. The chainsaw has a very slow startup time and attack animation, but, as the description says, it has extremely high attack power to compensate. Between the swiping attack for hitting multiple targets as they close in, or the forward thrusting attack to down most enemies in a single strike at medium range, it makes quick work of slower enemies that don't have much range, like mannequins and nurses. Walter Sullivan. Walter Sullivan is a cultist and serial killer who is closely linked to Silent Hill. References to Walter and his crimes can be found throughout the game, and in 2004, his character was greatly expanded upon as the main antagonist of Silent Hill 4: The Room. Walter was born in Ashfield, a town a half-day's drive away from Silent Hill, in room 302 of the South Ashfield Heights apartments. Because Walter's parents abandoned him immediately after he was born, he was sent to the Wish House Orphanage in Silent Hill, an orphanage secretly run by the town's cult known as the Order.
I used to work at the orphanage watching the kids. I'm Andrew DeSalvo. They tried to make it seem like an orphanage, but according to that town's holy scriptures, it was actually the center of their religion. And that kid Walter, he was really into that mumbo-jumbo. Especially that descent of the Holy Mother business. It was scary. Oh, God.
The cult's beliefs were heavily ingrained into Walter, and he was deceived by Dahlia Gillespie to believe that by performing a ritual known as the 21 Sacraments, or the Descent of the Holy Mother, he would be reunited with his mother.
October 14th. I did a good job reading today. I was so happy. But the 21 Sacraments for the Descent of the Holy Mother was hard. October 16th. Some important people came today. One of them, it's cut off. I can't read anymore. Here goes. October 17th. The important lady told me my mother was asleep in Ashfield. I have a mother too. I'm so happy. I want to see my mother. Where is Ashfield anyway?
This ritual involves Walter sacrificing 10 people, then taking his own life as the 11th sacrament, in order to become a spirit with powers similar to those of Silent Hill, before sacrificing the final 10 victims. Among those first 10 victims were the children Billy and Miriam Locane, who are also mentioned in Silent Hill 2 in the newspaper article found in the garbage chute of the Woodside Apartments, as well as during the elevator radio game show scene.
Silent Hill witnessed a gruesome murder a few years back. A brother and sister were playing in the road when they were attacked and chopped into pieces with an axe. Torn flesh, smashed bones, splattered blood, and finally, bitter tears. What a terrible tragedy. What a gruesome end to such innocent lives. Now the question, what was the name of the murderer who committed this vile act? 1. Walter Sullivan. 2. Scott Fairbanks. 3. Eric Gaines.
The description of Walter stabbing himself in the carotid artery to take his life from the same newspaper is also described as his method of becoming the 11th sacrament in Silent Hill 4, according to police reports and journalist Joseph Schreiber's investigation. In Silent Hill 2, Walter's actions as a murderer are likely meant to be a parallel to James, Eddie, and Angela also being guilty of murder, with Walter's suicide also being a parallel to James's own suicidal feelings from guilt. His remark about the Red Devil was originally meant to foreshadow the appearance of Pyramid Head, although these details were later changed for Silent Hill 4 to give more significance to Walter as a character in his own right and his victims. Laura is part of Silent Hill. This is an older fan theory that has since been debunked. The idea was that Laura represents some aspect of James or Mary, such as Mary's inner child, or James's lost innocence, or their desires to have a child together that couldn't happen due to illness, implying that Laura was a manifestation just like Maria or the creatures. However, members of Team Silent, like Masahiro Ito, have very bluntly debunked these ideas, stating that Laura, along with James, Eddie, and Angela, are all intended to be real people, except for Maria, who is a manifestation of the town. Gun politics. Finding the gun in the Woodside apartment room, it's sitting inside a shopping cart in a room riddled with bullet holes. It's been theorized by fans over the years that the gun's placement in the shopping cart is a visual commentary on how easy it is to obtain guns in America compared to the rest of the world, especially Japan, where the gun laws are exceptionally strict. Silent Hill is hell. Another old fan theory, and even an idea explored in some of the later games and comic books, that Silent Hill is a type of hell or purgatory. Despite some references and implications to things of that nature, evidence and statements from the original developer team imply otherwise. I'll go into this in more detail on the point Silent Hill doesn't exist, which is further down this iceberg. Level 3. Silent Hill 4 Holes. A fan theory that links the "there was a hole here, it's gone now" writing found in Bar Neely's to be a reference to the holes in Silent Hill 4 that transport Henry and other characters between reality and Walter Sullivan's memory worlds. Between this and the other mentions of Walter Sullivan, some fans speculate that there was an intentional link planned from the time of Silent Hill 2's development. However, there is no evidence for this, and it is far more likely that the team had no anticipation of how many games they would even be able to make, and that Silent Hill 4's story was written by expanding on the established information in Silent Hill 2 rather than planning for it years in advance. All dead bodies are James.
Oh my God. Who could have?
A vast majority of the dead bodies found throughout the game are modified versions of James's model. Some are more identifiable than others, with hair, facial features, and more details in the body, but even the less recognizable ones still have the iconic green jacket, blue jeans, and black boots. This was an intentional detail from Team Silent to convey the idea that James is suppressing ideas of suicide, self-punishment, and fear of death. The spiritual power of the town takes what is in James's mind and manifests it into reality, and the result with these particular thoughts and feelings are the mangled yet familiar corpses. There are also distinct, different-looking corpses for Eddie's victims. The body found in the fridge and the one found in the prison cafeteria are notably unique models not used anywhere else, and not using the James-based models. This is to convey the idea that these corpses are manifested for Eddie rather than James, based on people who Eddie deemed were mocking or bullying him. Once James enters the meat locker area to confront Eddie, the corpses littering the room once again resemble James, showing that Eddie's otherworld and James's otherworld are overlapping in that moment. Tatsuki. There is an Easter egg involving the writing on the back of the coins found in the apartments. If you compare the writing on the coins, you can see there are two different phrases written out in Greek characters. The font used to type out these Greek characters isn't a proper Greek typeset, but rather a common font used called symbol font, which is used for mathematical equations. The phrase written on the prisoner coin is using lowercase lettering. If you type out characters to match the writing on the coin, like so, and then swap the font to a more standard one, you get the following message. Tatsuki ga kyonen no 12月に生まれました. This is Japanese written out with the Latin script alphabet, also known as Romanji, which translated means Tatsuki was born in December of last year. This means that someone on the development team had a child born named Tatsuki during the development of the game, and it was memorialized through this Easter egg by item icon artist Eiichi Ito. As for the other two coins, both the Old Man and Snake coins have a matching phrase written in uppercase symbol font. When translating it using the same process as before, you get the message Tugi ha Eiichi Toshiko Rinta Azuma Zate. First, in the Japanese language, the character for tu can also be pronounced or written as tsu, and the character for ha can also be pronounced as wa. This gives us the word tsugiwa. Tsugiwa is a Japanese phrase meaning up next is, used as a preface to lists, and that's what this is, a list of names, including item design / modeling lead and creator of this Easter egg, Eiichi Ito himself. As for the other names, it's not known for sure, but this could reference some uncredited developers or maybe even Eiichi Ito's family or friends. Christina Aguilera's outfit. Maria's outfit underwent several changes during the concept art phases, but ultimately, the design that was chosen for her was very heavily inspired by musician Christina Aguilera and her appearance at the 1999 Teen Choice Awards. Cultists. A local cult, referred to as the Order, plays a significant role in the history of the town and acts as a direct opposing force in several of the games, with cultists like Dahlia Gillespie, Claudia Wolf, and Walter Sullivan as primary antagonists in the first, third, and fourth games. Despite the cult playing very little direct part in the story of Silent Hill 2, there are still many references to the cult's existence, history, and possibly even recent practicing members. The statue of cultist Jennifer Carroll is prominently displayed in Rosewater Park, described as having been persecuted by the Christians. The presence of the White Chrism, Obsidian Goblet, and Crimson Tome, specific items used in the cult's rituals. The prison cell containing occult books, artifacts, and symbols. And even Ernest Baldwin, the mysterious voice that Maria speaks with. A ghost? A manifestation of the town like Maria? Either way, he has an extensive collection of books regarding the cult's beliefs and rituals, and some knowledge and faith behind those writings as well, as Ernest was collecting items and information for the purpose of trying to resurrect his deceased daughter. In the Rebirth ending, James must also collect these same items to attempt the same ritual to resurrect Mary, although the results of his attempt are left ambiguous and unknown. Mary's letter changes. At the start of the game, James has only 2 items in his possession: a photo of Mary from when she was healthy, and a letter from Mary. The description says that it's definitely her handwriting. This letter, however, is not real. It's a part of James's delusion, either from his own mental break, the power of the town, or a combination of both. After James kills Eddie, examination of the letter will show that the writing is no longer there, and the paper the letter was written on is now blank. Next, after watching the VHS tape, the letter changes once again. This time, the paper is gone completely, leaving only the envelope. Then, after the final confrontation with the two pyramid heads, the moment symbolizing James breaking free of his delusion and accepting the truth, the letter is now completely gone from your inventory. Author Streets. Silent Hill's developers have a long-running theme of directly referencing the art, films, and literature that inspired them, and the streets are often named after authors whose works had a significant impact on them. Carroll Street references Lewis Carroll, author of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Rendell Street references Ruth Rendell, author of the Inspector Wexford series. Munson Street references Ronald Munson, author of Fan Mail. Saul Street references John Saul, author of Creature. Harris Street references Thomas Harris, author of Silence of the Lambs. Neely Street references Richard Neely, author of The Plastic Nightmare. Sanders Street references Lawrence Sanders, author of The Anderson Tapes. Katz Street references William Katz, author of Facemaker. Martin Street references David Lozelle Martin, author of Lie to Me. Vox Road references Andrew Vox, author of Blue Bell. Nathan Avenue references Robert Nathan, author of Portrait of Jenny. And Wiltz Road, referencing David Wiltz, author and writer for the film Revenge of the Stepford Wives. Painting within a painting. James arrives in the prison cafeteria and has an exchange with Eddie, who is once again denying any fault for the bullet-ridden corpse in the room. On the far end of the cafeteria, you can find a large painting, but take a closer look. The painting on the wall is a painting of the very room you are standing in, the prison cafeteria. One step beyond that bullet-ridden corpse that appears to be a unique model and victim of Eddie is instead replaced with a corpse resembling James in the painting, not only representing James's subconscious thoughts of his own death, but also foreshadowing his potential fate as just another victim of Eddie. Jack Nicholson poster. As James first enters the town along Wiltz Road, there are some torn up posters that can be seen on the walls in the area just after this gate. If you look closely, you will see that these are posters of Jack Nicholson as the character Jack Torrance from Stanley Kubrick's film The Shining, which was based on a novel by Stephen King. King and Kubrick were both massive influences on Team Silent, and they give a nod to this iconic scene through these tattered posters. Pyramid Head helps James. Despite being considered one of the game's primary antagonists, in many ways Pyramid Head is helping James. Pyramid Head himself is a manifestation representing many aspects of James's feelings, including guilt and a desire for punishment. James himself even says, when confronting the two Pyramid Heads near the end of the game,
I was weak. That's why I needed you. Needed someone to punish me for my sins. But that's all over now. I know the truth. Now it's time to end this.
There are even several occasions where James would be unable to progress if not for Pyramid Head. After the encounter in the apartments, Pyramid Head descends the stairs and opens the exit, draining the water, blocking the way in the process, and allowing James to escape. In Brookhaven, an otherwise inaccessible area that has necessary information for James to proceed is made accessible thanks to a little push from Pyramid Head. While he is a horrible, nightmarish manifestation of guilt and punishment given the twisted, distorted form of an executioner from times past, he's also a necessary element for James to make his way towards the truth. Hooded executioners. Pyramid Head is designed to reflect the hooded executioners from the history of Silent Hill when it was a prison colony. You can find paintings in the Historical Society and prison depicting these executioners, as well as mentions of them washing their bloody tools in the nearby waters from a historical monument found in town. Masahiro Ito has commented that it is because the Misty Day painting depicting a hooded executioner was seen by James when he was there on vacation with Mary originally, that the image exists in his mind to manifest Pyramid Head when he returns. UFO and dog endings. The first Silent Hill game had 5 endings, one of those being a New Game Plus specific joke ending known as the UFO ending, where Harry Mason uses a mysterious stone to contact extraterrestrial beings whom abduct him.
Sorry. Let me ask you, have you seen a little girl around here? Short, black hair.
Silent Hill 2 continues this with a UFO joke ending of its own, showing Harry making a return, now cooperating with the aliens to abduct James. Taking the absurdity one step further, Silent Hill 2 has a second joke ending, known as the dog ending, or Inu Endo. In this scenario, it is revealed that a massive control room has been causing the entire ordeal, and running the controls is a Shiba Inu named Mira. Guy CIHI, James's voice actor, is speaking Japanese during this ending, just to add to the absurdist humor. Mira the dog is also listening to music on headphones, which can faintly be heard, and is actually a song called In My Eyes from Konami rhythm game Beatmania IIDX 5th Style. This song was composed by none other than Silent Hill series composer Akira Yamaoka, who has been creating music for Konami's music game division, Bemani, since 1999. Level 4. Second Pyramid Head comes from Eddie. This is an unconfirmed fan theory that suggests that because Pyramid Head is a representation of James's desire for punishment after killing Mary, that once James kills another person, another human being, he once again feels an overwhelming guilt for taking a life, manifesting a second executioner for this additional murder. After the fight with the two Pyramid Heads ends, James must collect an egg from each of them to proceed. One egg is rust-colored, and one egg is blood-colored. In line with this theory, some speculate that the rust-colored egg represents Mary's life that was taken during her illness just days ago, and that the blood-colored egg represents Eddie's life being taken as he was younger, relatively healthy, and only just killed moments ago. Body in car all along. James killed Mary no more than a week before the events of the game. The 3-year timeline James convinced himself of was how long Mary's doctor had given her to live after her diagnosis.
Mary's going to die? You must be
joking.
I'm very sorry.
But you're a doctor. It's your job to heal people. How can you just let her die?
Please, calm down. As her doctor, I promise I'll do what I can. But there's still no effective treatment for her condition.
How long does she have?
I'm afraid I'm not sure. 3 years at most. Perhaps 6 months. It's impossible to say with certainty.
It represents the moment James felt he lost Mary. Even though she was still alive, their lives were never the same again. Mary was sent home from the hospital for her final days to be more comfortable with James before her illness overtook her.
The doctor came today. He told me I could go home for a short stay. It's not that I'm getting better. It's just that this may be my last chance. I think you know what I mean.
During this time of home care, James smothers Mary to death with a pillow. It's unknown the exact amount of time that passes afterwards, but based on a letter written to Laura while Mary was still alive, wishing Laura a happy 8th birthday, and Laura telling James she turned 8 last week, it can't be more than a week. After spending some time deciding what to do, James reaches his decision. He cannot live without Mary. James wants to take Mary's body and drive to the last place they were happy together before this damn disease took hold of her, Silent Hill. And he's going to drive his car into Toluca Lake to take his own life and be with Mary in the afterlife. So, James places Mary's body in the back seat of his 1977 Pontiac Ventura and drives back to that special place, that town, Silent Hill. But once he arrives, the weight of the mental burden of what he has done, the lingering fear and hesitation to take his own life, all combined with the heavy spiritual presence residing in the town, causes something in his mind to snap, and a delusion begins to form. James, trying to collect his thoughts, parks haphazardly, rushing into the nearby restroom to splash some water on his face and try to regain some focus, but it's too late. The delusion has taken hold. Why am I here? Oh right, I got a letter. James latches on to his delusion that Mary has been dead for 3 years, and his reason for coming to the town was the arrival of a letter that doesn't exist. This was a long-running fan theory that was eventually confirmed to be true by several people involved with Silent Hill 2's creation, including many comments from artist Masahiro Ito, as well as this commentary from James's original actor Guy CIHI, who describes the real-life Japanese phenomenon known as murishinju.
Okay, in my opinion. So go ahead and talk about what we heard. We heard that I think it was Ito that said that Mary was in the trunk here of this car. I don't know. What do you think of that?
Back seat. He said she's in the back seat.
And what do you think of that? Do you think that's...
It bent my mind. It changed everything for me. It showed me that these guys
thought things through, like things that they don't even show you.
They had ideas. Yes, they had ideas that were never disclosed, and for that to come out like 8-9 years after the fact, pretty much sealed the deal. If you add up the fact that the in-water ending is so beautifully constructed, and then her body in the back of the car is like, boom, okay, well, for them, that's the ending that their heart was in the most.
Yep.
I mean, that's where they put their greatest effort.
I think that pretty much does iron the fact that the in-water ending is the true legitimate ending if Mary was in the back of the car.
I wouldn't go that far, Dusty. I would say that they did understand the concept of having the multiple endings was something they really believed in. And in order to do that, they all have to be valid. But for them,
yeah,
they put more love and effort into the in-water because it touches a really, really heavy place in the psyche and heart of Japanese culture.
Oh,
her being in the back seat of the car was the key clue in that for me, you see. Now, in the trunk, that's a very American thing, but to put her dead body in the back seat, that's a very Japanese thing.
Yes.
And then to drive the vehicle into the water to commit suicide is entirely Japanese.
Yeah, it's like that whole theme of atonement that is very strong in the Japanese culture. Yeah.
It's called Murishinju.
Murishinju is described as a double suicide or murder-suicide without mutual consent. Lovers who would commit Murishinju believed they would be reunited in the afterlife, a common belief in Japanese culture dating back to the Edo period, stemming from teachings of Jodo Bukkyo, or Pure Land Buddhism. Masahiro Ito has also commented on the common mistake from fans that Mary's body was in the trunk of the car and has confirmed multiple times that this is not correct and she was specifically in the back seat. Putting a dead body in the trunk is a much more Western concept, both in real-life cases and in fiction, most commonly as a way of trying to hide evidence for disposal at a later time. Ito insists that James was careful to keep Mary's body in the back seat because he still loved her and had respect for her, even in death. Red Square meaning. There is a theme of red squares throughout Silent Hill 2. They represent the game's save points, but compared to the more literal save points of the first game, notepads where writer Harry Mason wrote down his experiences up to that point, the red squares in Silent Hill 2 are far more mysterious and abstract. When examining the first red square save point, found in a well on the pathway leading into town, James comments, "Looking at this makes me feel like someone's groping around inside my skull. It gives me a weird feeling." In context, this could be a fourth wall breaking moment describing the player's saving and loading of the game on a memory card to be actually manipulating the memories in James's mind. According to Masahiro Ito, in the specific arrangement of 9 red squares, seen as the final save point of the game and even used as the Japanese box artwork, each square represents each manifested creature type from James's subconscious. However, Ito himself doesn't go into too much detail, believing that maintaining certain aspects of mystery and ambiguity are necessary for good storytelling. Flashlight mannequin wears Mary's clothes. James cannot progress without a light in the darkness, and it's no coincidence that he finds the flashlight on a dress form mannequin wearing Mary's dress. You can compare the photo in your inventory and the dress itself to see it's the same color and pattern. And James even comments on it if you examine it, but he doesn't get too specific, a sign that his mind is still repressing most of his thoughts concerning Mary. Moths and butterflies. Death and rebirth are a strong main theme of Silent Hill 2, and in many cases, moths and butterflies are used to represent the cycle of losing one's previous form and being reborn anew, like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Maria has a butterfly tattoo, representing this aspect as she is, in some ways, Mary reborn. Maria is also more outgoing and even visually more colorful, like a butterfly, a contrast to the more plain tones of Mary. In her final letter, Mary describes herself as being wrapped in a cocoon of pain and loneliness.
Wrapped in my cocoon of pain and loneliness.
Another reference to this idea of Mary going through a metamorphosis of her own to become Maria after her death. Moths can be found in the apartments, and they actually are attracted to your light when it's on. Likewise, similar moths are used in the final boss's attacks, homing in on James. Chainsaw Scream. When James is holding various weapons, he has unique idle stances with each one. With the chainsaw equipped, James will usually perform an idle pose where he leans on the chainsaw for support for a moment. However, if there are enemies present, James will not perform this animation, and instead will raise the chainsaw high and let out a scream. This is likely a nod to the classic Tobe Hooper horror film, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where Leatherface was known for raising his chainsaw above his head and yelling wildly when chasing or intimidating his victims. Whispering. While exploring the Blue Creek apartments and entering room 209, there is a completely random chance to hear a sound effect of a mysterious whispering. When Silent Hill 2 first came out, many fans shared theories online of what this whispering could be. Fans speculated on various different ideas, many agreeing that it was James himself, whispering something about, "See my dead wife, come home to do some laundry to escape. See my dead wife, come home to do some laundry to escape." On March 31st of 2010, GameSet Watch interviewed Jeremy Blaustein, Silent Hill 2's translator and casting director, who worked very closely with the actors during recording, and asked him about the whisper. Jeremy had this to say. "As for the whisper, I am pretty sure it is just a little loop of one of the actors doing what we called at the time butsubutsu, or hitorigoto, mumbling or talking to himself, in the recording booth. I think they just snipped a loop and added some reverb. The Japanese sound guys would not have known what he was saying either, if I'm right, because it was just unscripted ad-lib." This was generally accepted as the answer until a 2015 forum post from user ParonMLS pointed out that the sound came from the Nightingale Voice Box Sound Effects Library Volumes 1 and 2. Yeah, after all the years of discussion and misinformation, it was just a stock sound. Jacob's Jacket. Team Silent was heavily inspired by the film Jacob's Ladder when creating the original Silent Hill games. Even the director of the film, Adrian Lyne, is referenced directly via the Linehouse key in the Blue Creek apartments. But perhaps the most obvious visual influence from Jacob's Ladder is James's fashion choices. Both Jacob Singer and James Sunderland are sporting standard military issue M65 Army field jackets in olive drab. While these jackets first saw use in 1965 by the US forces during the Vietnam War, by the early 70s they were widely produced for civilian use as well. You can even still buy newly manufactured M65 jackets from some of the same civilian brands to this day. Angela kills herself. Angela Orozco is a truly tragic character. Her life has been one of abuse and torture at the hands of her own father, along with emotional abuse and manipulation from her mother. After graduating high school, Angela tried to run away from home, but was found and dragged back home by her father, Thomas Orozco. In self-defense, while trying to escape again, Angela stabbed her father to death. The burden and pain of her life of trauma has clearly taken a toll on her, and when James finds Angela in the mirror room in the apartments, her posture, demeanor, and the fact she is holding the very knife she used to kill her father implies that she is contemplating self-harm or suicide. Angela even asks James to hold the knife for her, since if she kept it, she doesn't know what she would do. When James encounters Angela for the last time in the Lakeview Hotel, Angela's dialogue to James implies that she believes she cannot be healed or saved from her pain, and she asks for her knife back from James.
James, give me back that knife.
No.
When James refuses,
I won't.
Angela responds with,
Saving it for yourself?
To which he replies,
Me? No. I'd never kill myself.
Angela then turns and walks up the burning staircase, never to be seen again. Her fate is left somewhat ambiguous, but given the entire context of her character up to that moment, combined with this comment from artist Masahiro Ito, it can be inferred that she chose to take her own life, a parallel to James's own potential fate. Oh, and here's a hacked camera angle to show what actually happens when Angela walks up those stairs once she's out of view. Blue Velvet. Among the list of highly influential film directors to Team Silent, David Lynch is easily at the top.
And if you can believe it.
Lynch's film Blue Velvet, in particular, is directly referenced in the scene of James hiding in a closet while witnessing Pyramid Head torturing mannequin creatures. In Blue Velvet, Jeffrey Beaumont, played by Kyle MacLachlan, attempts to solve a mystery after finding a human ear during a walk and gets wrapped up in the world of a psychotic gangster named Frank Booth, played by Dennis Hopper. Frank has kidnapped a lounge singer named Dorothy Valens, played by Isabella Rossellini, using her husband as a bargaining chip to manipulate her. Infatuated, Jeffrey sneaks into Dorothy's apartment in an attempt to learn more, only for Dorothy to come home unexpectedly, and Jeffrey tries to hide in a closet but is discovered by Dorothy. At first, she forces Jeffrey to strip at knife point as punishment, but the situation turns even more chaotic when Frank Booth suddenly arrives and interrupts, and Jeffrey once again is hidden in the closet. Frank, in a violent drug-induced frenzy, beats and rapes Dorothy, while Jeffrey is forced to quietly watch from inside the closet. This deeply disturbing scene clearly left an impact on members of Team Silent, who aimed to capture some aspects of that moment in their own scene with James hiding from Pyramid Head. Mouth Hands. Creature designer Masahiro Ito has various different themes and inspirations he likes utilizing in his work, and one of those commonly used themes is the usage of strange and unnatural mouths. From a visual and artistic standpoint, Ito cites painter Francis Bacon for his work Second Version of Triptych as a direct influence. From a symbolic view, Ito uses the imagery of mouths to convey aspects of abusive words, describing the Mandarins as having mouths to abuse him, referring to the angry and hateful things Mary said to James while in the depths of her illness and suffering. Hebrew writing. In the starting area bathroom, there is some interesting graffiti on the walls worth taking a closer look at. A strange drawing surrounded by Hebrew writing meant to be a magic spell to ensure the safe birth of a child. This drawing is actually a depiction of a demon called Lilith, with the image taken from Fred Getting's 1988 book, Dictionary of Demons. The description of the image directly from the book says a crude representation of the Jewish demon Lilith worked into an emuletic spell aimed at ensuring the safe birth of a child. The reason why Lilith was linked with childbirth has never been satisfactorily explained, though the connection may be derived from the account of how the demon wife of Adam spawned the Lilin demons. This could be interpreted as a reference to Maria, a possibly demonic manifestation of James's wife Mary, or even foreshadowing James's own subconscious spawning the demons he's about to encounter. Pyramid Head is James. This is a theory that even has a bit of merit from creature designer Masahiro Ito himself. Because Pyramid Head is always seen with his iconic pyramid, it was unknown for the longest time if he had a face or head underneath, and the pyramid was more of a helmet or if it was his actual head. There was a misconception of this fact due to a possible mistranslation or misinterpretation from the narrator of the official Making of Silent Hill 2 documentary, where the narrator describes the pyramid as being the creature's actual head.
His first idea was this monster. Then he realized that it was nothing but a human in a mask. So then he took the concept further, giving him a head in the shape of a triangle.
A fact that was later corrected by Ito. Ito further explained in some other posts that while he didn't specifically draw or design Pyramid Head's actual face, he still had a mental image of what it might look like under the helmet. Someone's head bound inside many frames. When you take into consideration that Pyramid Head himself is a manifestation from James's psyche, a way for James to enact punishment upon himself for sins, one could assume that the face, bound inside those many frames underneath that helmet, might be his own. Level 5. Pyramid Head's secret appendage. When fighting Pyramid Head the first time at the end of the apartments area, Pyramid Head has some unique attacks that he only uses during this particular encounter. If James gets too close to Pyramid Head, he can grab James by the neck and lift him up. But if you look closely, there's another detail to this animation. A small panel slides open on Pyramid Head's helmet, and a tentacle-like appendage extends outwards, wriggling towards James. Monsters fear Pyramid Head. This was an old rumor that can easily be disproven. It was rumored at one point that, after acquiring the Great Knife, James could turn off his flashlight and drag the Great Knife around, which would cause monsters to flee in the opposite direction. The idea being that they would hear the knife and can't see you, so they assume Pyramid Head is coming. Considering we see multiple instances of Pyramid Head killing other manifested creatures, it would have been an interesting detail, but it is simply not true. Red squares on nurses. If you closely examine the character models for the Bubblehead nurses, you can see there is a visible red square found in front of their mouths. There is a lot of intentional mystery and ambiguity surrounding the exact meaning of the red squares. Ito himself has responded to many questions regarding these red squares with, "I'll leave it to your imagination." He has implied there is a connection between the 9 red squares imagery and the 9 primary manifested creatures: nurses, lying figures, mandarins, mannequins, abstract daddy, flesh lips, pyramid head, Maria, and Mary. San Bruno, California. The streets and storefronts of Silent Hill 2 are based heavily on areas of San Bruno, California. Even today, you can find parts of the original architecture and some of the stores and displays. These areas were originally much more closely designed to the source material for early pre-release builds of Silent Hill 2, and were slightly more altered for the final release. Members of Team Silent had flown to Konami's US office branch, at the time located in Redwood City, California, and likely went to nearby San Bruno, about 20 minutes away, for location reference photography. CIHI conspiracy theorist. During the 2020 pandemic, CIHI, James Sunderland's original actor, caught flack from fans over some controversial posts via his personal Facebook account, voicing his thoughts on the coronavirus being a scam to sell drugs meant to impair people and that the vaccines were fake. In a later post, Guy also suggested that 5G wireless data and the virus were connected, and that 5G was the cause of a coronavirus outbreak on a cruise liner. Obviously, none of these claims have any scientific or medical merit, and are conspiracy theories that CIHI unfortunately bought into. Blood Swamp. Near the end of Lindsay Street, you can find a monument to an area that was originally a swamp, known as Blood Swamp. The monument itself has much of the text worn away and illegible, however, the full text can be found in the game's data files. Remains of Blood Swamp. The X meters of land surrounding this monument was originally swamp, but was later filled in. From long ago, the swamp was nicknamed Blood Swamp because the executioners poured the water used to wash the execution tools in here. Perhaps it's for that reason many people seem to have seen ghosts in the area. This monument is meant to give some history regarding not only the town's former executioners, as well as establish a long history of people seeing and experiencing strange things in Silent Hill. Derwentwater. When Team Silent was creating the opening area of the observation deck, they needed a beautiful lakeside backdrop to really convey the idyllic yet haunting essence of Toluca Lake. And to do that, they used photos of Derwentwater Lake, located just south of Keswick, England. The photos were cut and edited together to create the scenic view of Toluca Lake. Pyramid Head echoes VALTIEL. From both a design and purpose standpoint, there are many parallels between Pyramid Head, the manifested executioner, and VALTIEL, the attendant of the cult's god. To quote from the Lost Memories Silent Hill Chronicle guidebook, one notable connection between Pyramid Head and VALTIEL is the fact that they both stalk the protagonist persistently. If the helmet that conceals Pyramid Head's face were to be removed, it would become apparent that the designs of the two are surprisingly similar. When the executioner's outfit, that is Pyramid Head, was designed, it was modeled after VALTIEL, an angel from the indigenous religion. Pyramid Head's gloves are very similar to VALTIEL's. At the back of the garment Pyramid Head wears, there is a mark where the cloth is stitched together, which is also a shared characteristic. In Silent Hill 3, the connection to the first game is quite clear, but the point of contact with the second game isn't so obvious. I created VALTIEL because I wanted to relate the works of the series through a creature. In the religion of Silent Hill, VALTIEL exists as one who is close to God, and Pyramid Head takes the shape of VALTIEL's reason for existence. That is to say, the Pyramid Head character was born from the townspeople's idolatrous ideologies. In the first game, the ceremonial robes were an homage to VALTIEL. Masahiro Ito. Labyrinth doesn't exist. As James progresses through the town of Silent Hill, the effect of the spiritual power on his psyche and on reality around him is constantly growing stronger. Manifestations and alterations to reality start off relatively minor, but by the time you reach the Historical Society, entire locations that haven't existed for decades, if ever, begin to manifest into reality. From outside of the Historical Society, you can clearly see the boat launch. The Historical Society building is relatively small, with only a few rooms dedicated to showing some paintings and artifacts from the town's past. However, a large hole in the wall is discovered, leading to an impossibly long descending staircase leading to the prison and labyrinth areas. The Historical Society was built on the prison's former location. After making his way through the prison, James finds himself in a nonsensical labyrinth of an area, flooded with water, with several dead ends and empty rooms and hallways. It's through these strange liminal areas that James eventually encounters and kills Eddie Dombrowski. Upon exiting the area where Eddie dies, James finds himself at the boat launch. The same boat launch originally seen just a short distance away from the parking lot outside the Historical Society, which has now been reached despite James descending a massive staircase, dropping down several unfathomably deep holes, and taking an incredibly long elevator even further down. This entire segment of the game makes no logical sense for it to physically exist, and just shows exactly how powerful the effects of the otherworld can be. Similar to the ending area from the first Silent Hill game known as Nowhere, a twisted amalgamation of locations. Invisible prisoners. While exploring Toluca Prison, aside from the lying figures wandering around, a unique enemy can be found that, technically, isn't really an enemy. Inside certain prison cells are invisible entities which can be targeted and attacked, similar to any enemy creatures. However, the sounds these invisible prisoners make isn't like that of any other creature, and sounds quite human-like. They don't have any attacks or animations, only pacing inside the cell, stomping loudly, and occasionally saying the word ritual. If the powers that surround the town can bring back this old prison, then it stands to reason it brought back some of its old inmates as well. The town is sentient. This has been a topic of debate among fans for nearly as long as the franchise has existed. In the Book of Lost Memories, the spiritual presence that exists around Silent Hill has been there for as long as recorded history, and was once revered by the local Native American tribes as being spirits of nature or spirits of their ancestors. However, once settlers came in and forced out the native tribes, it's theorized that this caused the initial corruption or tainting of that spiritual presence, resulting in the first town settled in the area to disappear mysteriously, likely a reference to the real-world disappearance of the Roanoke colony. Silent Hill would then be settled in the same area some years later. It's during this time the cult would form, and their extreme beliefs would push the already tainted spiritual presence even further into a darker, more sinister direction. This strange spiritual presence seems to be perceived by different people in different ways, and characters like James and Eddie even refer to a specific pull, insisting that the town called upon them to come.
You too, huh? Something just brought you here, right?
Yeah, you could say that. Don't get all holy on me, James. This town called you too. You and me are the same. We're not like other people.
However, during the in-water ending, James says, "Now I understand the real reason I came to this town," accepting the truth that he came to the town of his own volition, not because of a letter or being called against his will. We know based on the original games that the town is capable of taking what's inside someone's mind and manifesting it into reality.
It's being invaded by the other world, by a world of someone's nightmarish delusions come to life.
In the first game, Alessa's nightmares are manifested, but we also see examples of Dahlia's mental image of God being manifested as well.
My daughter will be the mother of God.
The town can make real what people subconsciously want to perceive. It is never made explicitly clear if the town itself has some sentience and chooses who it draws in and what they will experience, or if people like James and Eddie simply perceive it that way due to their own subconscious projections. Level 6. How far to BRAHMS? From the observation deck at the start of the game, the main road leading past town is blocked off. Above the blocked road, you can see the signs for nearby locations, like BRAHMS, which is described by police officer Sybil Bennett in the first game as being the next town over.
I'm a police officer from BRAHMS, the next town over.
However, the sign depicts BRAHMS as being 265 miles away, an incredibly long distance, especially considering Silent Hill takes place in the state of Maine, which is only 210 miles wide and 320 miles long. One could infer that perhaps this was a typo, which is what the fans who created the Enhanced Edition mods for Silent Hill 2's PC port thought, since they altered this sign to show 26.5 miles instead. In the Silent Hill HD collection, the sign was altered by the Hijinks team developers to show Paleville and Old Silent Hill as being 6 miles away, and BRAHMS being shown as 18 miles away. There is currently no official word from the original developers if this was an oversight on their part, or if it was intentional, possibly to show that reality is being distorted to make locations seem further away than they really are, to emphasize the feeling of isolation. Job passages reference Mary/Maria. On the walls of the starting area bathroom, there is some green-colored graffiti that references partial passages from the Bible. Job 10:8, "Thine hands have made me, and fashioned me together round about, yet thou dost destroy me." And Job 13:28, "And he, as a rotten thing, consumeth, as a garment that is moth-eaten." In regard to the first passage, this could be in reference to James fashioning or creating Maria through his own desires, only to destroy or cast her off in the end, not including the Maria ending, at least. For the second passage, it describes someone wasting away like something rotten, and compared to a garment that is being eaten by moths, slowly consumed over time. This could be a reflection of James himself, consumed by his guilt, or a more direct reflection of Mary, feeling that she was rotting from her illness, like an old dress being eaten by moths. The theme of moths throughout the game lends some merit to this idea as well. Silent Hill doesn't exist. This is a long debunked fan theory suggesting that the town of Silent Hill itself may not actually exist, and that all the characters and events we see happening there are happening in some sort of purgatory, afterlife, or hell. There's much information from not only the original games, but the original developers that this is not the case. Silent Hill was always intended to be a tourist town that physically exists, where strange things happen. There is plenty of debate from game to game if the town is still functioning as a normal tourist town, if it's abandoned, or many other thoughts and ideas on the ever-changing state of the town. But regardless of this, the town is meant to physically be there, and is not just an allegory or metaphor for hell or anything else. James can fall down stairs. James has some unique falling animations. There aren't many places to actually fall in Silent Hill 2, so it's entirely possible many people didn't know these animations exist. Not sure why something this relatively mundane is this far down on the iceberg, but there you go. James fall down. Moving on. The Spider's Thread. In Brookhaven Hospital, there is a note found that is a clue to opening the door that is painted to look like a woman with arms sticking out. She is an angel, no one knows, only I can see the lady of the door. They cannot walk along her bridge of thread, they fall from the weight of their crimes. Like bloated and ugly corpses, their sins, she devours them. Sin and sinner alike, she saves me, she is an angel. The reference to a bridge of thread and bloated corpses matches the descriptions of the two rings needed to pass through this door. One being a copper ring engraved with a spider, and the other being a lead ring with an engraving of a bloated face. Between the spider ring, the mention of the bridge of thread, and falling from the weight of crimes, this closely resembles story elements from The Spider's Thread, which is a popular Japanese short story from 1918 written by Ryunosuke Akutagawa, originally published for Akai Tori, a children's magazine. It's the story of Shakyamuni, another name for Buddha, who while looking through a lotus-filled pond is able to see all the way to hell. Shakyamuni notices a particular sinner by the name of Kandata, a cold-hearted criminal with only one good deed to his name. He once spared a spider he was about to step on. Moved by the act of compassion, Shakyamuni lowers a single thread of spider's silk down to hell. Kandata notices the thread and begins desperately climbing with all of his strength. He becomes exhausted after climbing for some time and looks back down to see how far he has come, only to see that the other sinners from hell have started climbing up behind him. Concerned with his own well-being, Kandata yells to the others to let go, that this thread was his alone. But at that moment, the thread breaks, and all the sinners are cast back down into hell. Kandata was given the hope for salvation, and then condemned himself by being more concerned with his own well-being than that of other sinners. In some ways, you could say that James was also given this chance for salvation through his experience in the town, with Angela and Eddie representing the other sinners. But it's up to your ending to determine if he succeeds and redeems himself, or descends back into his own hell. Eddie's victims are real. Over the course of the game, you can find several corpses that are meant to resemble James himself. These are meant to be the town's way of projecting his own desire for punishment and suicidal thoughts onto the reality around him. However, there are some corpses that don't follow this rule, specifically the victims of Eddie Dombrowski. When James first encounters Eddie in the apartments, a body can be found nearby in the refrigerator. Eddie is suspiciously quick to deny involvement, even without James implying that Eddie was responsible. The victim's body notably does not resemble any of the James-like corpses found around town, nor does it resemble any of the creature models either. When Eddie is seen again later in Toluca Prison's cafeteria, another victim with a unique model can be found. This time, the body is riddled with bullet holes, coinciding with Eddie now seen wielding a revolver. This time, when James confronts Eddie, instead of outright denial, Eddie makes a slew of excuses for his actions, before finally claiming it all to be a joke, before abruptly leaving. There is something that needs to be cleared up, and that is the difference between something real existing and something that is manifested by the town, specifically how it's portrayed in Silent Hill 2. When something, someone, or some place is real within the town, you can see that multiple people will perceive and experience the same thing at the same time. For example, in the bowling alley, where James, Eddie, and Laura are all present, they all see each other and perceive each other as what they appear to be to the player. The characters are all real. However, for a character who is a manifestation, like Maria, only James ever reacts and responds to her existence. No other real characters, such as Laura or Eddie, ever perceive or interact with Maria. Now, take for example, the abstract daddy scene with Angela. Angela reacts as though she is seeing her father, Thomas Orozco. James, however, has never seen or met Angela's father, and Angela's father isn't really there anyway. It's just a manifestation of the town. So while Angela is perceiving the manifestation as her father, James is instead seeing the creature, the abstract daddy, a nightmarish representation of Thomas and the sexual abuse he committed. Similarly, during the burning staircase scene with Angela, James comments on the temperature, stating, "It's hot as hell in here." But he doesn't comment on the very obvious flames, implying he doesn't see them. But Angela makes this assumption, responding with, "You see it too. For me, it's always like this." Implying they are part of her manifested reality, her otherworld, not being perceived visually by James, only by the player in that moment. When James is describing Pyramid Head as the red pyramid thing to Eddie, Eddie says he doesn't know what James is talking about, but that he did see some weird monsters. Another sign that Eddie and James are both seeing manifestations, just not perceiving them in the same way. Now, apply this same logic to Eddie, his potential otherworld, and his victims. Eddie describes encountering these people as them being bullies that are coming after him, making fun of him with their eyes, a result of Eddie's own victim complex. They could be manifestations of the town, created to torment Eddie, but if that were the case, wouldn't the corpses be perceived by James as something else, just like with the abstract daddy? Instead, James very bluntly sees a dead body, riddled with bullet holes, just like Eddie sees and is denying. What do you think? Were these victims other real people here in the town as well? Or are they just manifestations created to torment Eddie? Drawn and quartered. In Toluca Prison, a large courtyard area can be found where the center contains a gallows with 3 square indentations to solve a puzzle, which in turn gives you the horseshoe key item. While exploring this large open area, you can hear a sound of hoofbeats, horses galloping around the area, despite nothing being seen. Between the prison and its multiple execution methods described, the gallows, the sounds of horses, and the horseshoe item, it can be reasonable to assume this is a reference to a real historical method of execution, to be hanged, drawn, and quartered. This was a statutory penalty for men convicted of serious crimes dating all the way back to the reign of King Henry III around the year 1216. The convicted person would be hanged almost to the point of death, then each of their limbs would be tied to a different horse, who were then spurred to run in opposite directions, ripping the convict apart. Pachinko. Exclusively released in Japan on October 5th, 2015, the Silent Hill Pachi Slot was a gambling machine made by Konami and Takasago that used the setting and characters of Silent Hill 2. The gameplay is similar to that of most modern visual slot machines. Coins are inserted, and a button or lever is hit, causing reels to begin spinning. Depending on how the reels align, you may trigger a cutscene, enemy encounter, or other bonus events. It should be noted that while this is referred to as a pachislot machine, a portmanteau of pachinko and slot machine, there is no pachinko element involved in the machine whatsoever. Pachinko parlors are Japan's way of skirting around particular gambling laws, and usually feature pachinko machines where small silver balls are loaded into the machine, and through gameplay and random chance, more silver balls will be dispensed. These balls are then traded for prizes, which can be sold for cash at other nearby shops, getting around the Japanese gambling laws as no direct cash winnings are taken from the pachinko parlor itself. The Silent Hill 2 Pachi slot, despite its name, is essentially just a standard slot machine. There are many changes made to this adaptation, including entirely new visuals, character models, new enemy types, and very different story changes, such as Laura and James exploring the town together to find a functioning bar where James can stop in and order a drink, or James escaping via speedboat after triumphantly defeating a boss. Angela Orozco's character seems to be completely omitted from the Pachi slot, as she's not shown in the character profile pages or cutscenes at all. There's a lot more to the Silent Hill Pachi slot than what I can realistically go into here, but if you'd like to know even more details, I highly recommend this video from Silent Hill megafan and collector Whitney Chavis, aka CAMMY Rowe, who owns one of these Pachi slot machines and did a very thorough overview of it on her channel. Level 7. Softlock possible in Well. This is typically only possible in the PC version of Silent Hill 2, as it uses very specific glitches that are often utilized for speedruns. When speedrunning Silent Hill 2, there are several glitches revolving around the use of the quick save feature that is unique to the PC port, allowing you to save almost anywhere. Quick saving, while there is text on the screen, causes the game to not properly load in various things, including invisible walls and barriers and cutscene triggers. Using this quick save glitch, you can actually skip fighting the first lying figure, which means you never pick up the wooden plank, the only melee weapon in the game that you are normally forced to pick up. All of the other melee weapons, such as the chainsaw or steel pipe, are optional. At one point, when descending into the labyrinth below the Historical Society, James finds himself at the bottom of a deep well. The only way out of this well is to find a spot on the brick walls that is different from the others, as noted by the change in dialogue when examining the spot, and then breaking through the wall using a melee weapon. However, using the previously mentioned glitches and not picking up any melee weapons means that it's possible to reach this point in the well with no melee weapon of any kind, making it impossible to escape. Maybe we should refer to this as the ring ending. James stares at the player. This was a fan theory that comes from this 2020 post on Reddit's r/gaming details, where the original poster shared this image and text. In Silent Hill 2, the intro scene shows the protagonist James looking into a mirror. Increasing the brightness shows he is not actually looking at his reflection, but rather directly at the camera. This is not noticeable in-game due to shadow, but suggests James is gazing at us as the player. On October 22nd, 2022, artist Masahiro Ito, after being asked numerous times about this, begrudgingly posted his response. So, many people have asked me, but it's a headcanon. James doesn't look at the player. Yet another example that, despite all of the depth and detail of the Silent Hill games, not everything is meant to be overanalyzed. Anyway, back to overanalyzing. UFO ending true canon. There have been many fan theories and even various different official statements on which endings of the games are considered canonical. If you view canon as being the endings that make the most sense as a continuous story from game to game with the fewest number of plot holes possible, then the most likely canonical endings are the UFO endings. In Silent Hill 1, Harry Mason uses a channeling stone to contact aliens which arrive and abduct him. This story point carries forward into Silent Hill 2, where Harry is now working with the aliens and together they abduct James Sunderland after James contacts them using a blue gem that resembles the channeling stone from the first game. In Silent Hill 3, Heather arrives home to the apartment where she and Harry live, only to find Harry, James, and the aliens are already there. Heather describes the day she has had up to that point, which causes Harry to want to go to Silent Hill and bust some heads. The UFOs are then seen arriving in the town of Silent Hill and blowing it up. Silent Hill 4 doesn't have a UFO ending, however there are unused items found in the game files, such as the blue gem and channeling stone, implying that there was intended to be a UFO ending of some kind that was likely cut due to budget or time constraints. It's worth noting that in Silent Hill 4, you never see the actual town of Silent Hill. The worlds you visit throughout the game are recreations of locations made from Walter Sullivan's memories, meaning the actual town may still be lying in ruin after being destroyed by the aliens in Silent Hill 3. For just being a series of joke endings, the continuity is admirable. Really fast Pyramid Head. Due to glitches that can sometimes occur, it's possible for Pyramid Head to spawn in front of Maria rather than behind her during the final escape from Brookhaven Hospital's chase segment, which results in, well, this. So that I can shoot. Oh my god, he got ahead of Maria. I don't even know how that works, but I'm gonna keep running. Look at him! Holy fuck, what is this speed? I've never seen this. 208. The number 208, specifically in regards to doors and rooms labeled as such, is a recurring theme. In Woodside Apartments, room 208 is where you find the clock room puzzle. In the Blue Creek Apartments, room 208 is where you find the stairwell key and is next door to the Whisper Room. In the Labyrinth, room 208 is the number found on the door just before James discovers Maria's dead body. Currently, there is no official developer commentary or context to show that this has a deeper intentional meaning. Could this be an example of an unknown intentional meaning behind the reuse of the numbers, or is it simply common numeration for multi-level buildings with many rooms, such as apartments, hotels, and hospitals? Anti-circumcision. This has nothing to do with Silent Hill 2. I'm not even sure why this is on the Silent Hill 2 Iceberg. This is in reference to an incident on the Silent Hill fan wiki where an admin known as Alex Shepard changed several Silent Hill 4 articles to imply that the game's antagonist, Walter Sullivan, was a trauma victim due to circumcision. Alex was extremely aggressive and harassing other site admins and moderators who attempted to revert his anti-circumcision edits and rants, until eventually being removed from the site altogether. If you'd like to know all the details of this incident, I suggest watching this video on the topic from Justin Wang. Early Sigil of Metatron. This is a slightly incorrect point on the iceberg. What it should say is early Halo of the Sun symbol. The seal of Metatron and Halo of the Sun are similar but very distinct symbols, with different applications and meanings. The halo of the sun becomes a symbol of the cult's faith in Silent Hill 3, representing charity, rebirth, past, present, and future. While exploring the Toluca prison, you find a cult member's prison cell where you collect the wax doll key item, and on the wall is an early variation of the halo of the sun, showing similar markings but with 4 inner circles instead of 3. In Rosewater Park, there is a statue in memoriam of a cult member named Jennifer Carroll, and the plaque on it describes her as being persecuted by the Christians. Perhaps this was Jennifer Carroll's prison cell, containing all of her occult-related books, items, and this early cult symbol. Hebrew writing is gibberish. This has already been addressed with the Hebrew writing point from level 4. The image is a depiction of the demon Lilith, taken from the book Dictionary of Demons, and the writing surrounding it is part of an amuletic spell aimed at ensuring the safe birth of a child. Level 8. Konami Power Surge and Lost Eddy Scene. These two don't need to be separate points on the iceberg, as they are both referring to the same thing. During Silent Hill 2's development, a power surge causing computer failures led to some scenes, notably the scene where James meets Eddie, to be redone. In Official PlayStation Magazine, issue number 45 from June 2001, creator Takayoshi Sato states, "Well, the scene was originally accompanied by a lot of disgusting sound effects, and it had lots more vomiting, but for some reason, during our editing process, the computer we were using crashed and we lost it. I figured it was a message from God telling me that we went too far, so we decided to tone it down." Man sobbing in hotel. When exploring the Lakeview Hotel, just outside this particular room, the muffled sounds of crying can be heard. Considering we see from James and Mary's tape that Mary first started coughing and exhibiting signs of illness, this could be a reference to James's heartbreak upon learning the news of how severe her illness would be. Just around the corner from this area is the hotel library, where a set of headphones can be found that, when examined, gives an audio flashback to James learning the news of Mary's condition from her doctor.
Joking. I'm very sorry.
But you're a doctor. It's your job to heal people. How can you just let her die?
Please, calm down. As her doctor, I promise I'll do what I can. But there's still no effective treatment for her condition.
How long does she have?
I'm afraid I'm not sure. 3 years at most. Perhaps 6 months. It's impossible to say with certainty.
Ambient noises are random. Several ambient audio and sound effects are entirely random. The most notable of these is probably the whispering sound effect from room 206 of the Blue Creek Apartments, but all throughout the game are small, often subtle, sound effects and ambient noises that simply will play on some playthroughs, but not others. This adds a wonderful layer of psychological horror for a player who is replaying the game or sharing their experience with a friend and then questioning, did I really hear that sound? Or was that sound always there? Level 9. Lilith drawing. Okay, this has already been mentioned on this iceberg 3 different times now, with Hebrew writing on level 4, Hebrew writing is gibberish on level 7, and I honestly have no idea why, but everything regarding this has been covered already. A drawing of the demon Lilith is depicted in the starting area bathroom. The image is taken from the 1988 Fred Gettings book Dictionary of Demons. Here's a tweet from Team Silent environment artist Hiroko Usuda showing off her Japanese edition. Great knife is half of scissors. On November 3rd, 2020, Masahiro Ito revealed in a response to a fan on Twitter regarding the shape of Pyramid Head's great knife that the design was meant to resemble one half of a large pair of scissors. On November 4th, Ito further explained, "Yes, my decision, 'cause I meant it's one side of a scissors. James gets the other side of it at the room. I wanted to depict it's one of the tips that means Pyramid Head is the other James. But in fact, the one James gets is just the same as Pyramid Head's though. I didn't have time to make it." So it was Ito's original intention to have more clues to Pyramid Head and James being connected, and even show them each using a different half of a massive pair of scissors. Street Fighter CAMMY art in Heaven's Night. Wait a minute. I feel like I recognize this. I've never been able to see it really this clearly except for Enhanced Edition. Is that CAMMY from Street Fighter concept art? Okay. I don't know if I was just sleep deprived or what, but I was seeing things that were not there. This comes from a Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition playthrough that I did back in 2021, and for some reason I just happened to look at this particular poster or page on the wall of Heaven's Night, and it made me think of some concept artwork for the character CAMMY White from the Street Fighter series. I'm a longtime Street Fighter fan, all the way back to the arcade days of Street Fighter 2. I've collected a lot of Street Fighter art books and things over the years, and for some reason, my mind was trying to make some kind of visual connection between this blurry texture and some artwork I had seen of CAMMY. There are many instances in the Silent Hill games of Team Silent using somewhat random images scanned in from magazines, books, and other things being used as various textures. But in this case, I was completely wrong and seeing stuff that isn't there. Give me a break. I've been staring at Silent Hill games maybe a bit too closely for over 25 years now. You would probably start seeing things too. Original videotape scene. Data mining games to discover things in games not normally meant to be seen or heard by players has been around for a long time, and there have been some very interesting and disturbing discoveries made. Within Silent Hill 2's game files is an unused audio file for the VHS tape scene where James is seen smothering Mary to death with a pillow. This unused audio file, however, adds a vocal track for Mary, where she can be heard screaming, struggling, and then succumbing to James.
Are you taping again? Come on. I don't know why, but I just love it here. It's so peaceful. You know what I heard? This whole area used to be a sacred place. I think I can see why. It's too bad we have to leave. Please promise you'll take me again, James.
It's unknown if this was cut for censorship reasons, or if it was simply a choice made by the developers to tone the scene down. That's the entire Silent Hill 2 Iceberg. Thanks to Fly Me to Saturn for making this graphic, and I hope you all enjoyed this and maybe learned some interesting new things about your favorite game you didn't know before. Let me know if you'd like to see more Iceberg videos like this, and until next time, this has been Nub Zombie, your favorite undead horror nerd. Be good to each other. Much love, and peace.